Hello all, welcome back to Time to Dice Character Creation, where we make your favorite fictional characters in Pathfinder and Starfinder 2nd Edition. Throughout the month of October, we've been running a series of polls to decide which character you want to see slither into the spotlight next, and after a fierce round of votes, the winner was none other than Orochimaru from Naruto. Once one of the legendary Sannin of the Hidden Leaf Village, Orochimaru is a genius whose obsession with forbidden jutsu and immortality led him down a dark path that eventually led to his exile from the village. He's a master of ninjutsu, body modification, and his signature technique, soul transfer, which lets him constantly shed his body in exchange for a new one. So beware of spoilers, and without further ado, let's get started. So, what do we need to make this Serpentine Sannin? Well, while he may not have uncovered all of the world's secrets just yet, he's definitely made some serious progress. We need to make sure that we know an absolutely absurd amount of jutsu. And for some reason, a weirdly high percentage of those jutsu need to involve snakes. Next, we need to make sure that we can live forever. Or at least that our mind outlasts our body. Immortality is kind of Orochimaru's hope brand. And finally, whether it's because we've lost the use of our arms, we're preparing a new host for our soul transfer, or we just want to see what happens when we play God for a bit, let's grab a few different ways to channel our chakra into others and give them a terrifying power boost. For our ancestry, Orochimaru may have started as a human, but by the time we see him trying to take over Sasuke's body, his true form is revealed to be a weird snake made of smaller snakes thing, so we use that as an excuse to go Nagaji instead. As a Nagaji, we get 10 starting hit points, are medium size, move at 25 feet per action, and get an attribute boost to both dexterity and intelligence, to be both quick on our feet and terrifyingly smart. We also get low light vision, which is great for seeing around our many secret layers, and a Fang Strike that deals 1d6 piercing damage and has the finesse trait. For our heritage, we'll take Whip Fang Nagaji, which gives us the raised neck action, which increases our Fang Strike's reach to 10 feet until the end of our turn. Born into what seemed like endless conflict, Orochimaru lost his parents at a very young age. But don't worry, he found a completely healthy way of dealing with that loss, by beginning his obsessive research into all of the world's secrets. We'll lean into this backstory by choosing the War Orphan background, giving us a boost to Constitution and Intelligence, training in thievery and underworld lore, and the dirty trick skill feat. As Orochimaru had to learn that when the rules don't serve you, you have to learn to bend them a little bit. With this skill feat, we can make a thievery check against an adjacent target's reflex DC. On a success, the target's clumsy 1 for a round, but they can spend an action on their turn to end the condition early. And on our critical success, the target is also made clumsy 1, but the condition doesn't go away on its own, only ending when the opponent ends it. But before you go spamming this every round, this isn't completely without risks. On a critical failure, the target is able to turn our attempt against us, knocking us prone. Moving on to our class, at first, I was content to choose a pure spellcaster, and really hunker down on all the jutsu that Orochimaru knows. But once I started doing my research for this build, I remembered something pretty important. Orochimaru is actually insanely good at taijutsu. We're talking about someone who went toe-to-toe with the 3rd Hokage and even foretells Naruto. Fortunately, the War Mage class archetype gives us the best of both worlds, and an insanely long spell list, as well as solid martial prowess. Unfortunately, that long spell list means this build's probably going to take a while, so buckle up, this is probably going to be a long one. Even though we're a War Mage, we're still wizards at heart, which means we start with 6 plus con hit points per level, so try to stay off the front lines for as long as possible. We start with trained in perception, fortitude, and reflex saves, and we're expert in will saves. For our skills, we of course get Arcana, and then we'll round it out with Acrobatics for slithering around the battlefield, Deception for all the disguises that we need when the world hates us, Intimidation because snakes are scary, and we have a lot of them, Nature because, like I said, snakes, Society for knowing all the important figures in the Narutoverse, and Stealth for sneaking into your hometown, selecting your next host, following them into the forest, and biting them, all without raising any suspicion. Anime is weird, y'all. We still only get training in simple weapons, but our archetype lets us treat all martial weapons as simple, so we can still use the swords that we're known for. And we even get proficiency in up to medium armor. So whether we're rocking the Akatsuki robes or the Hidden Leaf uniform, we'll look the part. Now, let's talk attributes. We're definitely building a powerhouse here, but Orochimaru's strength comes from his mind, not his muscles, so our strength will start at a +0. Both our dexterity and con, however, come in at a +2, giving us the agility to weave through attacks and the durability to survive our own body swapping experiments. Our intelligence is at a +4. This is where we'll really start to shine. Intelligence fuels our spellcasting, our research, and every horrific plan that we'll cook up throughout a campaign. Wisdom is at a +1, just enough to represent his insight and cunning, but not enough to stop him from making questionable life choices. And finally, charisma comes in at a +0, because while we can definitely talk people into some bad ideas, not many people would call us charming. Before we dive any deeper into this build, let me take a second to tell you that if you like this video, make sure to let us know by hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel, and maybe even dropping a comment telling us which hero you want to see next. And remember, the more chalker you pour into that subscribe button, the faster we can summon our next build. Alright, now back to the video. As a battle mage, we automatically join the battle magic school, which gives us an extra spell slot of every rank, but each of those spell slots have to be filled with a spell from the battle magic list. We'll dive deeper into those when we cover our spell picks, but for Orochimaru, this actually fits us better than it does for most characters. Since our whole thing is collecting and experimenting with new jutsu, it's easy to justify learning spells that we haven't seen him use on screen. Our initial school spell is Force Bolt, a simple one-action spell that lets us target a creature within 30 feet for a bit of force damage. No attack roll or saving throw needed. Force damage isn't exactly an Orochimaru thing, but we'll flavor this as a chakra-infused kunai or some kind of compressed jutsu burst. We can make it work. We also get the War Magic feature, letting us swap out any prepared spell for Sure Strike as a free action at the start of our turn, for when we want to shift our battle strategy from summon more stakes to actual ninja fighting. Then there's Shield Block, letting us use our reaction and a raised shield to reduce incoming physical damage by the shield's hardness. Orochimaru doesn't exactly carry shields unless it's covered in scales and can't blink, but a little bit of reflavoring goes a long way. For our Ancestry feat, we're taking Throat Pocket, letting us store up to 4 items of light bulk in our throat. Is it the grossest way imaginable to carry around our gear? Absolutely. But hey, at least we can vomit everything in our throat into our square as a single action, in case you ever wanted to do that for some reason. Alright, let's talk spells. We'll start simple with Telekinetic Projectile, letting us hurl a ninja tool at a target within 30 feet. We make a spell attack roll and deal bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage, depending on what we throw. Kunai, shuriken, or just some spare lab equipment. Next is Gouging Claw, which lets us unleash our Pocket Snake. Yeah, I know how that sounds, but trust me, it's a real snake. This is another spell that lets us make a spell attack roll against an adjacent target, but this time we deal persistent bleed damage in addition to our piercing or slashing damage. Puff of Poison lets us unleash venom on a target within 10 feet, forcing them to make a fortitude save against poison damage, and inflicting additional persistent poison damage on a failure. Warp Step lets us Naruto run, letting us stride twice with a plus 5-foot status bonus to our speed until the end of our round. Caustic Blast sprays venom in a 5-foot burst within 30 feet, forcing nearby enemies to make a reflex save against acid damage, and on a critical failure, they take persistent acid damage. And finally, Torturous Trauma, which deals bludgeoning damage to a creature within 30 feet, and makes them fatigued on a critically failed fortitude save. And it's non-lethal, so we can experiment on our subjects all day without worrying about the deadly side effects of whatever we're doing. That's it for the cantrips, but now we get to move on to first rank spells. From the Battle Magic School, we pick up Breathe Fire for Orochimaru's early fire-style jutsu. This fills a 15-foot cone with flames, forcing everyone inside to make a reflex save against fire damage. Sure Strike doesn't need to be prepared, but is always an option thanks to War Mage. It's a one-action spell that lets us roll our next attack roll twice and take the better result, as well as ignore any flat checks from our target being concealed or hidden. For the spells we actually get to pick, Spider Sting is another snake bite venom-based spell that forces an adjacent enemy to make a fortitude save or be infected with spider venom, taking poison damage and becoming enfeebled. And lastly, we'll take Summon Undead and Summon Animal, our bread and butter for bringing snakes and former Hokage onto the battlefield. Right now, we can only summon creatures of level -1, but by the end of this build, we'll be summoning Manda himself, flavored as a benthic worm to keep things a little bit lore-friendly, of course. At level 2, we're required to take War Mage Dedication. Whenever we cast a non-cantrip spell that deals area damage, we can choose a number of creatures in that area who failed their saving throws up to our intelligence modifier, and move them up to 10 feet from where they started, after they take the effects of the spell, of course. And for our skill feat, we'll get Recognize Spell, letting us attempt to identify a spell that an opponent uses against us so that we can study it later. If we're trained in the right skill for that spell's tradition, and it's a common spell of 2nd rank or lower, we automatically know what the spell is. And as our Arcana proficiency increases, so too does the spell ranks that we can instantly recognize, up to 4th at Expert, 6th at Master, and 10th at Legendary. When we don't automatically identify a spell, we roll a secret check using the skill tied to its tradition. On a success, we successfully identify the spell, but on a critical success, we identify it so well that we gain a +1 circumstance bonus to either our saving throw or our AC against it. Level 3 wizards get a general feat, and we're taking the Fleet feat to bump up our movement speed by 5 feet. We also unlock 2nd rank spells, and this is where Orochimaru's toolkit really starts to take shape. Resist Energy lets us plan ahead for an opponent's elemental attacks, gaining resistance to acid, cold, electricity, fire, or sonic damage for 10 minutes. We'll call this preemptive adaptation. Gecko Grip lets us put our chakra control to work to climb up trees, granting us a climb speed equal to our normal speed. Humanoid Form will be our version of the disguise jutsu, letting us appear as any humanoid that we choose, so that we can try out new bodies before we take them for ourselves. And finally, Vomit Swarm. Yes, that's the spell name, and yes, it's as disgusting as it sounds. We unleash a 30-foot cone of snakes, dealing piercing damage to everyone in the area with a basic reflex save. And creatures that critically fail their saves are sickened 1 as they're unable to avoid our snake's venom. At level 4, we'll pick up the spell Strikes, letting us channel our chakra directly into our attacks. Whenever we cast a non-cantrip spell, we can use some of that leftover energy to add 1d6 damage to our strikes until the end of our turn. By default, this is force damage, but if the spell we used already dealt damage, we match that type instead. So if we cast Spider Sting, our next Fang Strikes is able to deal poison damage. For our skill feat, we're taking Assurance to let us skip any Arcana roll that we need to make, and instead take a result of 10 plus a proficiency bonus. Level 5 wizards sharpen their reflexes with Reflex Expertise, helping us avoid incoming attacks with precision, as well as an Ancestry feat that we can use to grab Skin Split, which allows us to take 2 actions to shed our skin, immediately ending any persistent damage that we're taking, and allowing us to make a new saving throw against any harmful effects that relies on skin-to-skin contact. With access to 3rd rank spells, we can add Earthbind to our list, sending a serpent slithering through the air up to 120 feet to drag a flying foe back to the ground. The target makes a fortitude save, and even on a success, they fall to the ground. But if they fail, they find themselves unable to take flight again for up to a round, or a full minute on a critical failure. Magical Fetters calls forth another conjured snake to ensnare a target within 60 feet, reducing their speed and making them clumsy on anything but a critical success, and even making them slowed on a critical failure. And if we want to hold someone really still, Paralyze lets us poison a target within 60 feet's body into complete submission. The target makes a will save, and even on success they become stunned 1, but if they fail, they become paralyzed for a round, or for 4 rounds on a critical failure, but at that point they get to attempt another save at the end of each of their turns to end the effect early. And finally, when creatures do inevitably get past all of our lockdown tactics and do land a hit on us, we get Wooden Devil for a substitution jutsu. When we're critically hit by a strike, we can activate the spell as a reaction, to instantly step aside and let a wooden replica take the blow for us, reducing the damage if not negating it entirely. At level 6, we get Intimidating Spell, letting us spend an extra action when casting any damaging spell to terrify our targets. Any foe that fails their saving throw against that spell becomes Frightened 1, or Frightened 3 on a critical failure, taking penalties to all their checks and DCs. If you want, you can reflavor this like everything else to be more venom-based, but honestly, Orochimaru is intimidating enough to justify using this just as written. For a skill feat, we'll take Slippery Prey, reducing the multiple attack penalty that we take from making multiple escape attempts in the same round, making it easier for us to slither free from grabs and restraints. At level 7, our wizard training reaches new heights as we gain Expert Spellcaster, improving both our spell attack rolls and DCs. For our general feat, we'll get Die Hard, raising our maximum dying value to dying 5 rather than dying 4, a fitting trait for someone who's cheated death more times than we can count. For our 4th rank spells, Weapon Storm lets us fill either a 30-foot cone or a 10-foot emanation with flying weapons, dealing damage to all creatures in the area with a basic reflex save, and inflicting that weapon's critical specialization effect if they critically fail. And yes, every one of those weapons is being spat out of a snake's mouth. I'm glad you asked. Bestial Curse lets us inflict a curse mark on an adjacent creature. That target must attempt a will save. On a success, they resist and become Clumsy 1 for a round. On a failure, they transform into a beast-like form of our choosing for an hour, gaining Clumsy 1, Weakness to Silver, and a new unarmed strike of our choice. And while in this form, whenever they attempt any action with the Manipulate trait, like casting spells, that target must make a DC 5 flat check or lose the action entirely. By this point, we've summoned a lot of snakes to eat our foes, but Containment lets us skip the middleman entirely and simply summon the snake around our target in the first place. The snake summon has Hardness 10 and 40 hit points, and is immune to critical hits and precision damage. We can use this defensively to protect our allies, or offensively to trap enemies, though unwilling targets make a reflex saves, with a success producing weaker serpents. Finally, Vampiric Maiden ensnares a creature within 30 feet, forcing them to make a fortitude save against void and piercing damage. A failed save is the target immobilized for 1 round, or until it spends an interact action to free itself. Meanwhile, we siphon their life force, gaining temporary hit points equal to the void damage dealt. At level 8, it's time to put that big brain of ours to work. First, we take the class feat, Knowledge is Power, which lets us weaponize our understanding of a creature's anatomy and fighting style. Whenever we critically succeed at a recall knowledge check about a creature, we can use that insight to impose a -1 circumstance penalty to either its AC or saving throws against the next attack or spell that we use against it. And our study works both ways, giving the same -1 penalty to their attack rolls or save DCs the next time they target us. Then, we pick up the Quick Recognition skill feat, allowing us to recognize a spell as a free action once per round, using a skill that we're at least master in. Between this and our previous feats, we'll know exactly what every jutsu on the battlefield does before it even finishes forming, and can react to steal or counter it. Level 9 wizards gain Magical Fortitude, boosting our Fortitude save proficiency to Expert, helping us resist poisons, paralysis, and whatever experimental toxins that we haven't somehow built up an immunity to already. For our Ancestry feat, we take Guarded Thoughts. Any effect that tries to read our mind must now succeed at a counteract check against our spell DC, or it learns nothing. This will help if the Yamanaka clan starts coming for Sasuke's location. This level also unlocks 5th rank spells. Impaling Spike lets us conjure a massive sword from a serpent's mouth to skewer an enemy. A creature within 30 feet must make a reflex save. Beyond the usual basic save results, a failed save immobilizes them, pinning them to the ground, and a critical failure makes them off guard in addition to that. Blood Feast gives us a more direct method of attack, putting our fangs into an enemy with a spell attack roll, dealing piercing damage and granting us temporary hit points equal to half the damage dealt. Slither actually needs no reflavoring at all. We summon a mass of snakes to fill a 20-foot burst within 120 feet. Every creature in the area when we end our turn or cast a spell takes piercing damage and persistent poison damage, plus becomes grabs or restrained, depending on its reflex save. This is one of the most Orochimaru spells ever printed. And finally, Drop Dead gives us a way to fake our demise. Whenever we or an ally within 120 feet are hit by an attack, we can use this reaction to make an illusory duplicate collapse while the real target turns invisible. This mimics Orochimaru's classic tactic of letting the opponent think they've won, then striking back once the smoke clears. Or more accurately, just standing there gloating. This is anime after all. Arcana of Iron at level 10 gets us proficiency with advanced weapons, which we don't really need. The real benefit here is that this feat upgrades our extra damage from Bespell Strikes from D6s to D8s, giving our magically charged attacks even more bite. Literally. For this level's skill feat, Oil Senses lets us avoid notice even against creatures with special senses, like Tremor Sense, Scent, or Echolocation. So even ninja as perceptive as Kiba Nakamaru won't see us slithering through the shadows. At level 11, we get Perception Expertise and Weapon Expertise, improving both our accuracy and awareness in and out of combat. And for our general feat, we get Toughness, getting additional hit points equal to our level, and reducing the DC of all recovery checks we make by 1. So we can survive getting bisected, incinerated, or impaled without even a scratch. For our 6th rank spells, Disintegrate might not be thematically perfect, but it comes from our battle magic school, and it's really cool, so we'll take it. We make a spell attack roll against a creature within 120 feet, and if we hit, that target takes massive untyped damage with a basic fortitude save. And if we critically hit, that target's save is treated as 1 degree worse. Wall of Metal will be our Rashomon technique, summoning an enormous barrier up to 60 feet long and 30 feet high, made of iron, cold iron, or silver, to do anything a wall can do. Block attacks, divide the battlefield, protect your latest experiment. Really, this spell is as powerful as you are creative. Tangling Creepers is easily reflavored into a nest of serpents, erupting in a 40-foot burst within 500 feet. Any creature moving through the area takes a minus 10-foot sacrifice penalty to its speed, and once per round, we can sustain the spell to make the spell attack roll against a creature within 15 feet of that area. On a hit, that creature is pulled into the snakes and becomes immobilized 1 for 1 round or until it can escape. And finally, Halcyon Infusion lets us play mad scientist with our allies. We can infuse our chakra into a willing ally of at least 5th level, granting them access to one of our prepared spells of 3rd rank or lower for the rest of the day. That ally can cast a spell as though they prepared it themselves, even granting temporary proficiency if they didn't already have it. This will really help you out if you find yourself in situations where you can't use your own arms. At level 12, we push our jutsu beyond standard spellcasting with the Ritualist dedication. This feat gives us a +2 circumstance bonus to all checks to participate in rituals, and, more importantly, lets us learn 6 rituals right now, plus 2 additional ones every 4 levels after. Am I going to list every ritual that we can get? Absolutely not. Have you seen how long this video is already? Our retention time would crash if we made it any longer. That said, there are a few that we're going to at least mention. Create Undead is a must for Orochimaru's reanimation jutsu, letting us bring back powerful shinobi from the grave to preserve our purposes, and Demonic Pact perfectly represents signing contracts with serpents. Maybe get a Merilith to fight by your side. Beyond that, the ritual list is really your playground. Pick whatever twisted experiments suit your version of Orochimaru best. For our skill feat, we'll grab Nimble Crawl, letting us crawl up to half our speed with a single action. It's a small benefit, but it fits the theme a little too well to pass up. Speaking of fits the theme, at level 13, we gain one of the most on-theme feats possible, Pit of Snakes. Once per day, we can summon a writhing mass of serpents, erupting from the ground in a 20-foot burst within 120 feet. The snakes fill every square in the area and remain for a minute. When we first use this action, or whenever a creature ends their turn inside the area, that creature must attempt a fortitude save against their spell DC. Any creature that fails is grabbed by a snake and takes bludgeoning damage, making it the perfect jutsu for restraining multiple opponents at once. You know, because we didn't have plenty of those already. This level also grants us weapon specialization, improving the damage of all the strikes that we make through release expert in, and more importantly, this level gives us 7th rank spells. Energy Aegis gives us resistance 5 to acid, cold, electricity, fire, force, sonic, and vitality and void damage. Turns out, snake scales are pretty resilient. Ling Sting upgrades our poison game, letting us infect a foe with Ling spider venom instead of regular spider venom. The victim not only takes poison damage as the poison gets worse, but it also becomes drained and may even become confused if the venom has time to run its full course. Finally, Lifewood Cage lets us summon a living cage around our enemies within a 20-foot cube, trapping them within grasping roots, or in our case, coiling serpents. At level 14, we pick up Quickened Casting, a huge boost to our action economy. Once per day, we can reduce the casting time of any spell that's at least 2 ranks lower than our highest spell slot by 1 action, meaning we can chain jutsu together or move into position before we summon reinforcements. And the Kip Up skill feat lets us stand from prone as a free action rather than a full action, and doesn't trigger enemy reactions. At level 15, we gain Master Spellcaster to improve our spell DCs and attack rolls, and the general feat, Sanguine Tenacity, which reduces the penalties from Enfeebled and the penalties in lost HP from Drained, as if the condition was 1 less, as well as granting us Resistance 5 to persistent bleed damage, and reducing the DC to recover from bleed damage from 15 down to 11, or 6 with effective assistance. For our 8th rank spells, War Mage gives us Desiccate, letting us drain the moisture from any number of creatures within 500 feet. Each target must make a basic fortitude save against void damage. But much more importantly is Monstrosity Form, which we'll use to get our 8 branches technique to transform into a massive Hydra. Whether you want to flavor this as the cave worm or the sea serpent form is up to you. Or just pick whichever form fits best at the time. And if you really want to surprise your enemies, go off theme and maybe even use this spell's Phoenix form. Refusing to die and rising from the ashes is surprisingly pretty on brand for Orochimaru. Level 16 gives us the Effortless Concentration class feat, letting us sustain 1 spell or effect as a free action each turn, meaning we can maintain our ongoing jutsu, like, summon snakes, poison clouds, or containment fields, without sacrificing the actions to unleash new terrors. For our skill feat, we'll pick up Unified Theory, letting us use Arcana in place of nature, occultism, or religion when making checks tied to a spell's tradition. At level 17, wizards get an Ancestry feat, but the Nagaji options at this level don't really fit our build, so we'll go back a bit and pick up Cold-Minded, granting us a +1 sacrifice bonus to saves against emotional effects, as well as turning any successes on those effects into critical successes. We also unlock 9th rank spells, but honestly, none of these capture Orochimaru's flavor either. So instead, we'll just put Falling Stars up on the screen for a second so you can check it out. At level 18, we pick up Steady Spellcasting, granting us a safety net for our jutsu. If any effect would disrupt one of our spells, we can attempt a DC 15 flat check to push through and cast the spell anyway. Sure, it's a little bit late in the build to be picking this up, but considering Orochimaru's habit of standing right in the middle of the action against some of the heaviest hitters in the Narutoverse, this feat will hopefully prevent us from being punished too hard for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. For our skill feat, we'll take Forensic Acumen, letting us perform forensic examinations on a body with half the usual time. And if we succeeded the check, we can immediately make a Recall Knowledge check with the +2 Circus bonus to follow up on something we discovered. This isn't Orochimaru's first time around a corpse. Or his second. Or his 100th. At level 19, we truly rise to the rank of Legendary Sannin with Legendary Spellcaster, increasing our spell attack rolls and DCs to their highest form. And we also get Numb to Death. This general feat grants us an absurd survivability. The first time each day that we regain hit points from dying, we recover extra hit points equal to our level, and don't reduce our wounded condition. But the real prize here is Archwizard Spellcraft, giving us access to 10th rank spells. And for our purposes, Manifestation is the ultimate jutsu, letting us cast any 9th rank or lower arcane spell, and any 7th rank or lower spell, period. At this point, congratulations in order. You have officially mastered every secret the world has to offer. Mission complete. But wait, we have one more level to cover. At level 20, we get Spell Mastery, giving us 4 extra spell slots, each holding a different spell of a different rank up to 9th rank. My picks would be 9th rank Summon Animal, 8th rank Blood Feast, 7th rank Paralyze, and 6th rank Vomit Swarm. But hey, feel free to swap those out for your own favorites. This is your build after all. And finally, we cap off this build with the Swift Sneak skill feat, allowing us to move full speed while sneaking. What's worse than an unkillable snake man with no moral code? An unkillable snake man with no moral codes that you can't see. But that's a wrap on our build for Orochimaru in 2nd edition. We've mastered Forbidden Jutsu, cheated death, and turned the laws of nature into our playthings. All that's left is for you to like, comment, and subscribe so that you don't miss out on the next build that we bring to the channel. And until next time, keep rolling high, and we'll catch you in the next one.